Welcome to Wildspire. You get to be a fly on the wall for my intimate conversations with entrepreneurs who are changing the world. I'm your host, Stephanie Benedetto, coach, storyteller, and unmarketer at The Awakened Business, helping coaches and change-making entrepreneurs unleash their inspired message and share it with playful unmarketing. I'll ask curious questions and explore uncharted waters with my guest today. Anything can happen when we step into the unknown of infinite creativity, and that's where we're going to play. My guest today is Anthony Trahair, who has a love for play that won me over immediately. His story, which is quite fascinating, you'll get some tidbits of it in our conversation, includes experience juggling as a street performer, clowning, and really studying what it is that's going on with us in play, as well as integrating a spiritual approach to it. So all of these elements create a very fascinating perspective and experience that Anthony has to share. Let me tell you a little bit more about Anthony Trahair. Anthony Trahair is a passionate advocate for the power of play and personal transformation. With over 2 decades of experience, Anthony has dedicated his life to helping individuals rediscover their playfulness and rewrite their life's rulebook. Anthony's mission is to empower individuals to live life on their terms, free from self-imposed limitations and filled with the boundless possibilities that a playful mindset offers. An ex-professional juggler turned yogi and life coach. Originally from the UK, he now resides in Italy, devoted to permaculture and off-grid living. He has authored 2 books, Pearls of Juggling and Meeting Life. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Anthony. So hello, Anthony. Welcome to the Wildspire podcast. I'm so pleased to have you as my guest today and loving all the books behind you. If you're watching the video, you'll be able to see them. But if not, there are many, many, many books behind you. Very colorful, very inviting.
Yes, thank you, Steph. I'm bringing my books with me. Yeah, I'm gonna just say this straight away to this thing. I was holding a yoga class in my house the other day. I normally do it in a yurt in the garden, and the man said he could really feel the weight of all these books in the room, you know. So it's like they have a weight to them as well, you know. All these words, it's all like interesting stuff in there, and but they also have weight. You know? Knowledge has weight to it somehow as well. But anyway.
That's interesting. One of the things that I've come to know about you, Anthony, as I've talked to you and listened to you a little bit, is the tremendous amount of information that you take in, the knowledge that you have, the reading that you do, the experiences that you've had, and you know how you're always like learning and pulling things together and trying things. So it actually makes perfect sense to me that you would have books behind you. And I think that's fascinating because what drew me to you was learning about the Playfulness Festival that you've been having in Italy. And, you know, play, it's like, that's the magic word for me. And I thought, what an interesting combination. So like, what has inspired the Playfulness Festival and your passion for playfulness and helping people to engage more in that way?
Yeah, it's I think it's always been a big part of my life, this aspect of playfulness, and the way I sort of narrate this story as I understood it is that I was doing an online course with Charles Eisenstein about living in the gift, and in that course, we were working on our talents, like what it is we have to give to the world, you know, like living in the gift, you have something to gift, right? And it popped out for me that playfulness was the thing, my gift. And it wasn't a surprise to the people I know. They was like, of course, of course, that's what, yeah. But I hadn't ever really seen it as a thing. You know, I saw it as a modality, and now I see it more as even like a movement, you know. It's it brings with it a lot of things, playfulness, but So anyway, I was doing all this research around playfulness with with my new idea. This was my gift, and I'd already read quite a few books, um, writings by Bernie de Koven, and he's got some really cool stuff, spiritual, philosophical around play and playfulness and what it means, how we co-liberate other people through playing, um, and um, and so I was looking into how to find out more about playing and playfulness, and then I came across this playfulness festival in Denmark, Counterplay, which they stopped doing it for a few years now anyway, and and I had to go there. I had to go to this playfulness festival, and it was in Denmark, so it was all very really organized. You know, there were like touch screen computers on the walls in this library, and nothing quite like it is in Italy. You know, Italy's very everything works very well, but it's not like super technological, right? And there were lots of academic talkers about playfulness there, and there were lots of practical things, and I already had this feeling that I would like to bring a festival into the village where I live here, because it's such a beautiful medieval village here in Italy. And I talked to the mayor at that time, and I just suggested him, said like, "What do you think about it?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, do it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, I put together the first edition in the village, and and it was great. It was great. And then the lockdown happened for the next year. So we did an online version. So I've met lots of people all around the world, and I keep meeting people all around the world that they're bringing playfulness into their things, and some really very special people. And and then then we started to do it in this sort of like how do you say, like sort of like a sort of camping ground. It's not really a camping ground, but it's I would say it's like an eco village. It's like it wants to be an eco village anyway. It's getting there to be an eco village. So it's like very much out of the city. And the first edition there, this is where I really sort of started to really believe a lot more in this work. In the first edition there, what I saw after just 2 days, it lasted for 4.5 days. After 2 days, I could just see that people were coming back to really back to their humanity. You know, they sort of like dropped things, they're being like more kind to everybody, more available. And this might happen in all sorts of different like retreat situations, right? But it was something very special that people that didn't even know each other um, just felt that they were really connected into a big tribe, and they could just be themselves and be silly and laugh. And yeah.
Mm, that's cool. You know, I had an experience of that last weekend while I was at the Yoko Ono exhibit at the Tate Modern Museum in London. And I met my Airbnb host there, who I had just met, I don't know, 12 hours earlier, right? And he met me because he hadn't seen the exhibit. And if you know anything about Yoko Ono, she was always doing weird shit, right? Like she had this performance artist thing that she was doing in the 60s and 70s, and nobody got it at the time. They just thought she was annoying and she was vilified or whatever. But now she has an exhibit in the Tate Modern Museum. But she has interactive performances and paintings that she would write about, and then you can act them out. Like one is, I actually made a video of this, painting to hammer a nail. And the idea is, you know, your painting is you you have a blank wall or a canvas, and you hammer a nail in and you tie a piece of your hair around it that you've picked up from the morning. And then when the canvas is filled, your painting is done. And so they actually had these available for people to do. We got to hammer nails, and we got to draw on this wall, and we got to take a piece of sky home with us. They had hats hanging from the ceiling. And one of the things that they had was a piece that she did where you have a person get into a bag and just move around on the stage until they're done. And that's the performance. And so people who were attending could do that. And I looked at my host and I'm like, I'm going to do that. And then when we got up there, the woman who was assisting, she looked at both of us and was like, okay, here, you guys both get in. And I was like, we're both going to do it together. Like, I just met this guy. So we get into this bag and we're like dancing around inside of this black bag and we can just see out and no one can see us. And it was so much fun, Anthony. It was like, talk about a bonding experience with this guy that I just met. And we ended our little dance performance with a hug inside this bag that people could see that we were hugging. And someone was really moved by it. And it was it was such a blast. And afterward, there was a guy there who was taking pictures and like we all became friends, like immediately. We were connected by that playful experience of just creating together. That's kind of how it felt. And it was wonderful. So I could see that happening just by giving people permission to go ahead and play.
Yeah, no, that's it. Wonderful, wonderful story.
Yeah.
Yeah, art and playfulness and it's all very connected, interactive. When art becomes interactive, it becomes more playful, definitely. Mm.
Yeah. So what is it that you're seeing for yourself about playfulness? Like, how has it changed your life when you go
Hmm.
deeper into it? Because you've really been like studying it as well as practicing, right? And
Yeah, yeah, sure,
experiencing.
sure, sure, sure. Okay, so what I'd noticed as well is that a sort of like serious cloud had settled over me, right? And I couldn't quite put my finger on what the hell this thing was, right? And I realized that it wasn't so much about me, but around the whole context that I'm in. So
Mm.
like I'm going back to like why did I start this playfulness festival as well? So I realized that I needed to be with people that are playful as well to help me to liberate myself as well into a more playful state. So one thing like let's say that we all have a special way of thinking, right? I have a mind that's very divergent. I can think up all sorts of different ideas on things, and it zaps a bit all over the place, right? And so I guess with playfulness, I've learned to embrace this side of me a little bit more, you know? And and I don't know, it's I always like to greet people with a bit of enthusiasm. It's like, hello, and like really, and I mean it, it's not just being like fake about it. And I've just started teaching. I did 10 years of kids yoga, Stephanie, where I was teaching like really small kids in the end, they were it, in the last few years I was teaching kindergarten, like 1.5 to 2.5 year olds. And it's incredible. It was incredible what I was doing with these kids. And I've just started this again after 4 years of this lockdown thing, right? And so good to play with these kids. It's they get it. They get me, and they're all game. They're all game for it. They're not like running around all over the place. They do a little bit, but they're not I've got them under my radar, I know what's going on. And yeah, and it's just I just love accompanying this evolutionary process of discovering your body, how it moves, listening to quiet as if it was a game, interacting with other kids, um, and just how like lesson after lesson, this just like blows their mind into like what's possible. Because as adults, we're boring, We like sit down, we stand up, we walk, we get in a car, we cook. We're not dancing in the kitchen like not many of us are. So children don't have like little kids. They need this. They need to see people doing crazy things, not crazy things with the body, but being a little bit more animal with their bodies, right? Let's say using their bodies in yeah, just having fun with your body. They need to see this stuff. Otherwise, they grow up too fast as well, kids. And yeah, so so yeah, what am I learning as well? It's I suppose it's like activating this state a little bit more, you know? And I just recently just heard this definition of like what needs to happen for you to start on the path of playfulness, no, on a playful path, let's say like this. And there were three things that really struck me that came out. And one of them was a loving heart. And the second one was a joyful mind. And the third one was a vibrant body. And when you've got these three things sorted out, or like you've got them under your radar, then you can enter into the playful path. So this for me, it's I'm always looking for these sort of um, distinctions, you know, how to understand how playfulness is, and it's not just I'm serious, I'm playful. You know, there's a whole series of you know, like the first steps is really to be able to see around us that there are things that are playful. There are things that aren't doing things for any particular reason. You know, they're, I mean, this is like a bit poetic, right? But there's trees blowing in the wind. You notice it uh, when you slow down and allow like this sort of game to take past. Or you notice more obvious things like kids playing, laughing as they're doing so, animals, they also always up and just interacting with this sort of these sort of playful energies awakens this loving heart and this joyful mind, and so that's like the first step, and then we can sort of like see who is trying to interact with us in a playful way, because it's all about relationships. And so if you know, children, sometimes they're very direct and they say, would you like to play with me? You know, or our friends, you know, they say, but other times it's not so direct, you know, it's more it's hidden somehow. So we have to really have our eyes open and our ears open to hear these moments, and say yes to them, and say yes to them. Because I get caught up in my things totally, right? And I'm like, I'm not open to anything anymore. And perhaps that's okay, you know, but like every now and again, got to snap out of this thing. And so then after we see this, we sort of see these invites, then we're able to start inviting other people. And when we start inviting other people into playfulness, whether it's like, would you like to play frisbee with me, to catch this ball, let's dance together, you know, or or jumping in a bag in a museum. You know, it's like there's an invitation there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and but we've got to do this step by step. If we start off inviting people before we've really understood, then oh, it might be okay, eh? But I think it's perhaps a too big a leap um to take. And then afterwards, it's like, how long can you permeate in this state um where, I mean, what I've seen is it gets really deep with this whole idea of playfulness, you know, it's really like where you see the whole of the world as being a creation that's being created um, moment by moment around you, and you're taking part in it, or you can decide not to take part in it. You can see your role in it, um, where really all starts to become more of a game where there's no drama to it. Um, I wouldn't say it's we accept it as we see it as an illusion, you know, like a Maya, this sort of idea. It's more this idea of a Leela, um, and that's like the top state. I mean, I'm not saying I'm in this top state, right? But I know that there's this top state, so that's what interests me.
Mm-hmm.
This like freedom, and when I talk about breaking your rules, no, and it's not about being like just like being rude. It's like um with all these like mental constructs we've got in our head, like I have to do this, I can't do this, or I shouldn't do this, and this and the other things, um, they weigh us down enormously, and make life seem like a terrible slug, you know, slog, hard work. Mm.
Yeah. There is, I had this experience I was telling you earlier about the transformational event that I went to over the weekend. And at one point, I laughed so hard. I couldn't stop laughing. And I almost fell off my chair, that kind of hard laughing. And it was because I was seeing the cosmic joke.
Mm.
Like I was seeing how beautiful and how we create so much pain and suffering for ourselves and we don't see it. And it came from a comment that one of the facilitators said. She was talking about work she had done with women in prison. These women had been in prison for murder. And she said, the only difference between those prisoners and me, as far as the thoughts that come into our heads, was that they were in a low enough mood when that thought came in that it looked like a good idea and they acted on it.
Mm.
Because the same thoughts have occurred to me. And at the moment, it's not occurring to me as funny in this moment, but at the moment, I could just see how I make such a big deal about what's going on in my head, the movie playing in my head. And it means nothing until I make it mean something. And we're all in that. We're all in it together. And it just was so funny. And I think to me, and this is just how it comes through me, right? People would probably, they associate playfulness with me. I use words like play and adventure and quest and like game all the time. But I'm not really doing gamey things necessarily. It's just the way I see the world. And so
Mm.
when I feel life, when I feel the universe move through me, it feels like it's laughing. Like I feel like life is always laughing, like it's playing and laughing, not at us, but enjoying, delighting in everything, the whole game of being human, the whole game of life with its dramas is like joyful to the aliveness of life itself. And when I'm not taking my thinking so seriously, that heaviness, you were saying knowledge can be heavy, right? Because it just wants to keep, it wants to get things right. You were talking about
Mm. Yeah.
certainty and making sure that we're safe and we get the right results. It's so heavy. When we drop out of that, we can actually feel the aliveness of life moving through us, which is always happening anyway. And when it does, I see that we return to our natural state like children. We become playful. And it looks different for adults than it does kids. And it looks different from some adults, like for you and maybe me. It might be a little more dramatic at times. Like, hey, I'll be like, yeah, let's go do something goofy and like be really strange and weird and, dance around or whatever. Not everybody's like that, but everyone I meet, as soon as they are in a quieter mind and they settle down, I'm like, they go, oh, I'm not playful. That's not me. I see it in them. It's the way they joke. It's what they find funny. It's what lights them up. And all of a sudden they're getting delighted. That is playful. It just looks different. So yeah, anything in that is interesting to you, Anthony, I'll pause there because I start to get on a little
Yeah,
bit of a
sure,
ramble.
sure. Um, yeah, it's really asking us to make a little jump to get into this state of playfulness, and it's I don't know, I don't like to say it like it's a higher level of mind activity or beingness. It's a higher level integration, perhaps, and it has sisters or brothers like joy, like courage, like kindness. Um, yeah, there's some other ones that don't come to mind right now. But when we work on playfulness, we're working on all these other aspects of ourselves as well that are always there. And and yeah, we all have this playfulness inside us, right? And when we touch it, we feel more confident. We feel more alive. We feel more joyful. Because it's taken us out of this all this like self-doubty type thing, It's definitely like playful energy. It's definitely like a yes energy, If we take from like impro comedy, it's this yes and, it's like, yeah, that's a great idea. And what can we help building off stuff, it's building, It's being curious of what way we can take things, and what one thing I wanted to say that's happened, right, is that when people realize and they come in contact with their playfulness again, there can be some grief comes up because it's like this playful thing. It's been like near me all of this time. I didn't even know it was there, and I've like wasted all these years not being in contact with my own joy and my own creativity. And we start to realize that because we see it all this straight away, because we're not stupid, right? We see that it was drummed out of us, so we can also be a bit angry about this thing as well. There's so many things that have been taken out of us, it's I remember this is like going on a right tangent here, but it works. I remember watching this documentary by Stephen Jenkinson, Grief Walker it's called, and it was about he like accompanies people into their death, right? So can we be playful around death? That wasn't the point there. The point was, and this really touched me, that this whole thing around death has also been taken away from us. We don't see dead bodies, we don't see all this, we don't see. So there's so much. We're sort of like we're not grounded anywhere. We're sort of bit like floating around like people, and playfulness really grounds us when we know like our playful personality. Because it doesn't just mean being a joker, right? I mean, lots of people talk about this now. There's also the explorer, and I think the explorer is one of the most, probably the base level of playfulness is the explorer type. It's this going on a bike when we're kids, sliding around in the mud. It's going into an abandoned house. It's just hanging out, and this can also be in our minds. We can explore like in our meditations. This can also be more internal, this exploring thing. But we're always wondering what's there and looking for it. And when we stop to do that, it all becomes very granted and very stale, and we feel like we've done it all already, or we know it all already. And then when this sort of like hardcore boredom kicks in, we can be very destructive then, because we're looking to fill this void with something. We don't realize it can be as simple as playing, right? So we start to like all sorts of like self-destructive behaviors, addictions, and what do they call them, keyboard warriors activities and stuff, these sort of things, and even like a keyboard warrior, she is looking anyway for connection with somebody. They're looking to play, but it's just like becomes so exploded out of context and so far away from like a playful debate around an activity that just becomes very violent, and it's unacceptable to be able to interact with somebody in that way. So yeah, I just spouted out lots of different thoughts on this.
Uh, hmm. It's something that is, I think what for me is so helpful, and the area that I often explore play in with people is inside of their business, which many people are decidedly not playful about business. They're very serious about it. There's a lot of importance. I'm making money and I need to have a valuable service and I'm a responsible human being, and like heavy, I need to get this right. Pressure, pressure, pressure. We do so much of that. And finding the lightness, it is inside of us. I see that as soon as we start seeing how we do the heavy, we can choose not to. We begin to quite naturally go, oh, the reason we go into that is because we've been told that's the way it's supposed to be, and we really believe it. You're supposed to be serious about these things. You're supposed to create pressure, because otherwise you'll never do anything in your life,
Yeah.
And we can yeah, go ahead.
There's a big thing around trust. Since I came back from India now, I don't know, I wouldn't say everybody trusts everybody there, but I felt it a little bit more there, right? A bit more. And I've come back to Italy now, and it's Europe generally, probably North America as well. It's we don't trust anybody, and when we stop trusting, it makes it really hard to actually enjoy what you're doing, especially if you are on the end of somebody not trusting you. You don't give the best of yourself. You just don't do it. So so yeah, I just wanted to say that with so this topic around playing business is a really interesting and delicate one as well. It's because it could be a bit forced on, right? Oh, now we have to play, and it doesn't work like
Yeah,
that, you know. You
it
say to a kid,
isn't.
"Play,
Hmm.
dance for me," you know, they're not going to do it.
Right. Right. And that's not, I think, what either of us are pointing to, at least in
No,
what I see is allowing it to arise naturally, giving yourself permission to explore and be curious and express and look around you first at like, what is playful? Can I see the play around me? And whatever we put our attention to will begin to come more alive and we'll start to find it in us, even if we think that's not me. What is it? How does play express itself through me? How is life living with that aliveness through me? If we do it as a tactic, we can create pressure around that too. Well, I'm clearly not getting this, or there's no way I'm doing that when I'm way too uptight. I'm too uncomfortable. I'm not getting up to dance with Anthony. Are you kidding me? Like, no. But there are little things that are available all the time. Like I have playful interactions with when I am open, I have playful interactions with people all the time. It's as much as like joking, smiling, appreciating. It's not fancy a lot of the time. It's not like I'm not
yeah,
a
yeah, me
jester
too. My
generally.
particular favorite is people in the supermarket, you know, in the cat in the or people that are like really clearly in a role. It's quite a good place to start to be a bit more friendly. Friendly is a good access into playfulness. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah, really
So
friendly.
you mentioned earlier, Anthony, something that I am fascinated by. You said when you're doing yoga with children and you would listen to quiet like a game, what happens? What is that like?
Well, it's like the difference between saying be quiet or it's even like you know we play this game a lot, but if we bring it to a bit more awareness, you know, we play music and it stops and we pause. There in that moment, we're listening to the we make silence a game then, um, and it's not like a constriction. Be quiet. Um, it could also be let's listen to the quality. I mean, bigger kids, little kids don't get like listen to the quality of silence, right? Listen, you know, they don't hear it. They probably wouldn't even like let's listen to the trees, the wind or something. I don't know. Maybe they do, But it's yeah, it's this listening to the opposite of and I just want to zip back to this thing again about this playing and there's lots of people that work with making meetings more engaging, more effective, and all this. But even if you just like, I read this recently. I can't remember who wrote it, and I'm really sorry. But it was the idea was get all your bad ideas out immediately. You know, start with all the bad ideas, and it just like brings smiles to people's faces. You
Hmm.
know, getting all the bad ideas. And as I read about it, and it also said we become less attached to our ideas. Otherwise, everybody thinks they have the best idea, and they don't go anywhere. You know, it's like, and then somebody else's idea is chosen, and everybody feels like they're bad that they've been left out, and so even just like starting with that sort of process, you know, like let's start with like everybody like share a couple of really bad ideas and and brainstorming generally needs to come from playfulness. Otherwise it's just way too self-censored, you know, we're like perhaps, you know. So if it's playful then it can go really crazy directions and come up with brilliant ideas, yeah. Mm.
So what's happening there when we give ourselves permission to be playful with something? What are we not doing and what are we doing instead? Like what's happening in that moment?
Well, one thing, we're not taking it as like the be all and end all right solution. There's this famous TED talk, and Ken Robinson changing education paradigms, no, which is about boils down to the school in the end teaches us that there's only one right solution. So this plays a lot in our lives, also plays out when we think our life purpose, we want our one solution, it's like this thing, we want this one thing. And so we're not very comfortable with multiple realities mixing together. But so yeah, I've lost the plot now.
Let's see if I can remember what I was asking about. Like, so what is it that we're not doing when we're being playful? And what are we doing instead? So we're not doing this thing of like, there's one answer, there's one right way to do this, and I have to find it, right? We're not doing that.
Yes, yeah, and we're building on it. We're building on it. We're saying yes, and I interviewed Clay Drinko recently for my podcast, and he's a great. He does a lot of things like comedy, improv. Really, very special conversation with this man, and so yeah, this yes and is really important. What else aren't we doing? We're playing this like really shit game. I'm playing this game, which is I want to be right and you're all wrong, essentially in some sort of form of it. So that's not a very fun game. So when we start to actually realize that what is interesting is what happens between me and you and not what happens in me or you, then it becomes more interesting. And I'm very happy that Simon Sinek has got dived really deeply into this whole thing about finite and infinite games, because this is all about an infinite game is all about playfulness. It's all about keeping the game going until somebody's tired of it or you don't want to do it anymore. It's not because somebody has won, which is the finite game. And it's really beautiful what he says about it. And he actually says that businesses are finite games. No, sorry. They're treated as finite games, but they're actually infinite games. They want to keep going, right? But they behave like they're finite, like they have limits and they have all these sort of things. And perhaps there are some limits, right? And we play with them. But with a mindset, there's like, we have to be the best. We're going to win. And this doesn't work with an infinite game, Infinite gamers, they're into collaboration. They're into helping each other out. They're into seeing where our meeting points are, where both of us aren't talking about something. It's not about being like jealously like they're our competition. I don't think we can actually go much further forward thinking like that.
Yeah. So Anthony, what is really in your heart for people? Like if you could show them anything or share with them a message that you think would make the biggest difference for them, what would that be?
Yesterday I was it's almost like not planning things so much to the letter, have an idea, a gist of something and go with it. The more I plan things, the more they go wrong, but I have to be a bit careful about this, because it's really important to know what my aim is at the end, what it is that I want. And then I know with different tools I can get to that place, right? So not to be so rigid about the process of getting anywhere, but to be clear on what it is, it can be even going for a walk. We're going to go for a walk with my friend. I want at the end of this walk that we just like feel really good and we've connected, and then you're going to be a little bit more, perhaps follow each other's pace a little bit more, because they're march on really fast and the other person's trying to keep up with you or something, it just allows you to connect more with the other person, or to know what we want. That's really, really important though. And so allow yourself just surprise yourself. Surprise yourself. I think that's like, how do you surprise yourself? Like, I mean, how can you surprise yourself? How can you make yourself surprised, right? It's it's if our life is so full of like things that we need to do this like super efficient days, you know. I mean, it's brilliant to be like super efficient, but if there's no space for um like unplanned activity, then it all becomes a bit tight, you know. It's in Holland. Um, I heard that people they like 2 or 3 months in advance they book like a dinner appointment with friends, you know. I mean, it's too much, you know. It's too much. Uh, it's just all a bit too becomes a bit too stale then, and we're missing this fun in our lives, you know. We're missing it. So I hope that answered your question, Steph.
Yeah, I feel that. I found that I catch myself making assumptions, not just about other people, but about myself. I'm this way. I like these things. I don't like those things. And when I've stopped doing that, the more I show up with myself, curious, what will Stephanie be like today? What will she enjoy today? What kind of mood is she in today? I can surprise myself. And I
Mm.
think that the biggest ways in which I've surprised myself because I don't say no to things. I think you're right on with yes and. It's like the universe brings you something and you go, yes, and serve it back. You know what I mean? You're not saying no, 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 no shuts down everything that's coming to you instead of allowing you to take it and build with it and move with it and play with it. And so I don't, I'm not going to say I never do this, but I'm being aware that when things come to me, I let them be there and really show up with it without knowing what my answer will be, without
Mm.
knowing if I want to go deeper or not. And then I surprise myself by the things, some of the things I say yes to. I've gotten involved in, I had these projects come into my life about building eco villages, and I'd never been interested, never considered. I started getting interested in community, had no interest in it except for until a few years ago. And then now I'm really interested. I have I'm actually like partnering with someone to create a board game. I had no interest in that. And it didn't happen like, will you create a board game with me? Yes. It was more like, hey, do you want to play? Let's hang out and see what we might like to create. We'll put all of our interests and dreams and like what would we like to do. And it ended up that this was something. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I want to see if I can do that. And there's like that. If I think I know who I am and exactly what I want in life, which is different than knowing like what I want in the moment, right? That's different. I miss out. I miss out on so many delightful things.
Mm. The lights, yeah. This is what I like, really like what Catherine Price was saying. You know, like really like go around like I can't remember what term she uses, but this is how I get it. Like, you know, capturing the lights, capturing them. You know, it's just these like 2 second things where we see something beautiful and you just capture them. Mm.
Yeah, that's lovely. So you're going to be doing a workshop for me and my community on April the 16th. And I'll provide links in the description and things so that people can find it. And it's on breaking all your rules, right? Do you want to tell me a little bit about that and what people can expect to experience and enjoy or not expect, but get surprised by
Yeah,
maybe?
I think it's really follows on to from all we've been talking about. It's really seeing some of the things that aren't fun anymore and seeing some of the things that have been fun in the past and just try and understanding our particular take on playfulness. And you know, I would say break all your rules, but it's this thing. It's
Mhm.
like not being so rigid. Allow yourself to do something slightly different. And yeah, I share other things about my story. You know, because I studied chemistry at university, and then like, I don't know. I'm not going to go into my story now, but anyway, you know, it's our lives can be very meandering, and when we open up into complete trust, lots of amazing things happen. It's not all woo woo. It's just we see them. We see the opportunities that before weren't able to see them. They present themselves. Perhaps they always were there, right? But yeah, we open ourselves to synchronicities, which is yeah, it's my take on playfulness anyway, in an hour, in a nutshell.
Nice. And I have attended a past version of that, and I thought there were some really interesting reflections and questions posed throughout that I think will be very rich and appreciated by the people in my community who, if they hang out with me for any length of time, they have some desire to be more playful, even if they think they are not. So, and they're at least enjoying other people playing around and enjoying themselves.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
good. Just enjoy other people. We don't have to be like somebody else.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I'm opening up another thing here, right? Because it's like all of us are a bit envious of other people, and it's envy is like painful, right? It's like a painful, but when we see it as like actually it's an invitation, that's how we would like to be, it helps us. It like loosens this thing a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So I'll very much be looking forward to that. And if someone's listening and they would like, of course, please come attend Anthony's workshop that he's doing for our audience here. But where else can they go to find more about you, Anthony? Where's the best place they can go?
They can go on my website, anthonytrahair.com. I've started to write really a lot of blog posts now around playfulness in all these different forms, and I run this playfulness festival in Italy at the end of June, Gioco's Mente Festival. It's got its own website. It's very wild. It's a very wild festival. It's like camping. There are some there's some lodgings, but it's just like you just really come back to your playfulness there, and I've been very interested in taking people through their play histories, like a play history deep dive. There's a lot that we forget about, like when we were little, that when we remember it, we think, why don't I do that anymore? And it just becomes more present. There are kids that when they're younger, they dance on tables, things like this. They don't do that anymore. I mean, it's just to say that like you're a mover, in your life, your way of playfulness is moving. So you need to put music on and dance with people. And if you're not moving your body in a creative way, then you feel it and you miss it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for sharing this and for your quest of playfulness. Really appreciate that. And more of it is a true blessing for the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Thank you all the listeners as well.
Thanks so much for joining me for today's Wildspire conversation. If you'd like to receive a weekly Wildspire email from me filled with inspiring stories, unmarketing experiments, tips for playing your way to impact and income without the hustle and hype, insights from my spiritual business journey, and more, go to theawakenedbusiness.com/wildspire. Until next time, may you know yourself as the gorgeous wild creation you are.